Welcome everybody to the East Brunswick Historical Society, and I hope you find it somewhat comfortable. You're sitting in a historic building. This is the old L.J. Smith farmhouse. This house was built in 1860, so it was built pretty well. It's still standing. This house was lived in by the Smith family. The Smith family were early farmers here who had apple orchards up and down Milltown Road on both sides. And that apple farm continued until to the 1980s. After the Smith family stopped living here, it was eventually taken over by the township. And the township in East Brunswick was the owner, and we are the tenants of this building under a long-term lease here. Okay, so when you get a chance afterwards, if you like to, we have kind of a mini museum here. You can take a look at some of the rooms on the first floor. We keep the second floor closed because it's a really large steps going up there, and it's not easy to get to the top. This is a pretty big house. It's 6 bedrooms upstairs. And,
wow! Oh my God!
Yeah. Because they had a big family. The original Smiths had 10 kids, so they lived in this house and raised apples, among other things. Okay, so what about us? What are we doing here? The Historical Society was founded back in the 1970s by 2 very prominent women, Rose Sackle and Stella Goldsmith. And the idea was to provide educational programming in history, local history, state history, American history, and that's what we've been doing since the club was founded in, I believe, 1974. It was started, and so we want to put programs on like this that we feel the public would be interested in, to learn something, and learn something about the history, because New Jersey is a state with a tremendous history going back to the colonial days and pre-colonial days, and East Brunswick is part of that tradition. So we hope to give you programs like that, and like the one we're going to give today, which is about the state police, and Larry will introduce the speaker in a few minutes. We're a nonprofit organization, okay? We don't get any money from the town. We don't get any money from any grants or anything like that. We depend on dues from our members and contributions from the public. So there is a contribution box in the kitchen where the refreshments are. If you could help us out in any amount, that would be very helpful, because these programs may or may not have to be paid for. The people that we bring in are lecturers, they're historians, they're teachers, they're public servants, people with a strong background in the subject matter, as you will hear today from our current speaker. The other thing that we do here is we're involved with historic preservation. When somebody wants to tear down an old building, they have to contact us, and we have to determine whether or not that building is worth saving. And sometimes that's an uphill battle. And we've lost some historic buildings over the years. Not too many recently, however. So we have to keep our eye on what the town plans to demolish, or private developers are trying to eliminate, and we do whatever we can to preserve those properties, because it's part of the history of the town. In addition, lastly, I just want to say, look, we're a small club. We're always looking for new members. If anybody here is interested in becoming a member of the Historical Society, see me after the program. There's applications here, and I'll take the information, and then you can join. We only meet once a month on a Saturday, so it doesn't interfere with weekday activity. So keep that in mind. We always need good people to help us with our mission here. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the meeting over to our president, Larry Goldsmith, who's going to introduce our speaker for today. Larry?
Thank you, Howard. First of all, you are all smart people because you're not wasting your time watching the Jets lose again. 1 win and 7 losses. The good news is that they're playing a team that's 2 wins and 6 losses. And it's raining. So you all get the badge of a star, gold star, as Estelle would say. I hope what Howard said inspires you. Certainly Estelle, my mom, she was the instigator of this institution, and she has inspired me for the appreciation of our history and the preservation of it. Besides the history is the structures, and Ann Alvarez is spearheading most of that. So when we see a building, for instance, there's the Rutgers, on Rutgers property at the end of Sullivan Way meets Rodgers Lane. You see the agricultural farm, there's a house there. Well, that house has historical significance, but unfortunately, it's on Rutgers property, and there's not much we can do about it. But we did investigate it, and anything else like that, you can feel free to contact us. If you buy an old house and you want to put a wooden siding on it, or vinyl siding, excuse me, that's something we can talk about. You're here today, obviously, to hear John O'Rourke. John has been a trooper for 26 years. He's going to explain to us a little bit about the history, perhaps some of the idiosyncrasies, like if I want to get married, can I just get married or do I have to speak to my superiors? Why do they wear wool shirts, wool jackets? I don't know if that's still the case. Is it still, John?
It's a blend, but it's still long sleeves. We do not wear short sleeves.
But no more wool.
It's a blended wool.
It's a blend, it is, which seems incredibly difficult. But he'll explain some of that. There is a museum which will explain. But what do you do once you retire? You work in this case, 26 years. You just wait and get the pension checks, and you get the health plan from the state of New Jersey. I don't know, do you get that? We get it then in Rutgers.
I do?
Yes.
I do.
Rutgers, you work 25 years, you get a subsidized health plan. And you just go to Florida in the winter, and what do you do? No, you don't do that. You don't sit around and vegetate. You get involved. You do civic engagement. Civic engagement is very healthy. It adds to your long-term health, your mental health, and Estelle is a perfect example of that. She's 102. Oh. But her hearing isn't so good, so she's not here today. She's at home. So if I get beat, I have to go running, but it's unlikely. So what do? You start considering some of your other attributes. And one of John's attributes is he's a writer. And believe it or not, he's written 4 books, and a 5th one is coming. Am I right?
No. Kind of.
Okay.
I have 6 books, and another one's coming. I got 6 books.
6?
Sometimes I lose track myself.
He'll tell you a little bit about them. Just the titles briefly. Jersey Troopers, Sacrifice at the Altar of Public Service. New Jersey State Troopers, Remembering the Fallen. The Jersey Shore Thrill Killer, Richard Beckenwald. And Mystery, Millions, and Murder in North Jersey, the tragic kidnapping of Exxon's Sidney Resto. I kind of forgot about that. So I don't know if that's in your plan for today. There's an awful lot John can talk about, but if you could touch base a little bit, refresh our memory about that case. Let's see what else. John also has a BS and a master's degree. So John is no slouch. And if he keeps this up and he doesn't drink and doesn't smoke, he may certainly get over 100 years old.
I don't drink, but I said to my wife, my New Year's Eve resolution will be to drink more. I don't drink at all, so I'm not supposed to. I have 1 year to drink. I'm not imbibe once in a while. I'm not your typical Irishman that way. I'm a two-fisted drinker, but it's not alcohol.
Caffeine and sugar. Okay. So without further ado, please, I welcome John O'Rourke.
Thank you. I'm going to do a combination, if you don't mind, of sitting and standing. Since I threw out my back, which led to a leg injury, I guess it's an old martial arts injury that's burned this ugly head. I am going to speak about some state police things. I didn't plan to speak about some of my other books. However, I I'm open to any questions along the way. Don't feel like you have to wait to the end. I like to do it in a conversational tone. So, yes, background, I did 26 years in the state police. It was a long 26 years. Now that it's gone, it seemed like it went fast. Any retired troopers here or police officers? Bridgewater Township, there you go.
Sure.
So, oh, well, there we go. Okay, so you guys are going to probably kind of feel what I'm talking about in some ways. There's a common thread that goes beyond policing from local, county, state, and up to the feds. There's a common thread that's sewn in between that kind of draws those people into that type of work and stuff. So when I was asked to speak about some of the murder mysteries in the state police, it kind of threw me for a loop there, because I haven't really written any books about state police investigations. However, I did touch on some state police investigations with my two books that I wrote with the troopers who died in the line of duty. Obviously, that's going to deal with some investigations that dealt with their line of duty deaths. So, anyone familiar with the Philip LaMonaco case?
Yeah, I remember that case.
1981?
Used to come to our court
Phil did?
when you wrote tickets.
There you go.
Some of them.
Yeah. There you go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to try to sew a connection on how these things unfold, and it's not like what you would really think it is, how these things actually come to fruition, and how these troopers come in contact with these people. It's not by happenstance most of the time, especially with the LaMonaco case. So I plan on doing some video feeds along the way from a documentary that was based on that. Kind of makes it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more engaging, and it fills some gaps that I myself can't fill because I wasn't part of the investigation.
To the scene, we're all basically road troopers to start with. That's where we started from. We all knew the dangers involved, and of course you never think it's going to happen to you, and you really don't think it's going to happen to someone like a Phil LaMonaco.
LaMonaco is a legend in the department. Arriving at the scene, Lieutenant Richard Ryan can't believe he's been shot.
Initial shot struck Phil in his chest area. He was wearing a bulletproof vest, but the impact of the shots kind of turned him a little, and one of the shots went in under his armpit and went directly into his heart and basically killed him, that one shot.
Investigators find LaMonaco's service revolver empty. All 6 rounds fired, indicating the trooper had gone down fighting.
So, you hear the one part where they said Trooper LaMonaco was a legend within the state police? That's not hyperbole. It actually was true. Phil LaMonaco had made a reputation for himself through numerous criminal investigations and arrests. At one point, he left the road to become a detective. Now, many talk about history, and I love history. If you don't, you know what I'm saying, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. There's a lot of people don't really understand history. And Phil LaMonaco was like the epitome of a Jersey trooper. He became a detective. Now, in the state police, detectives are lower on the state police hierarchy than troopers. There's a lot of troopers, the young troopers that probably don't even know that. I spoke with a captain one time, and I asked him the difference with because when they have stripes, the detectives will have no diamond in the middle of the rocker. They call it a rocker comes down, and a road trooper will have the diamond. And I said to him, "Do you know the difference?" He guessed, well, the detective's ranked higher. A basic guess would be the more stuff you got on your sleeve, the higher ranked you are. Right? He should have got that. Troopers in uniform troopers are ranked higher on the division scale. And it's because troopers are empowered to do investigations. Most local, my brother was a local police officer, and he ultimately became a detective for the town. But when they go on to a burglary or any type of crime, they do a preliminary report and submit it to the Detective Bureau. Uniform troopers do not. They do the investigation. So a lot of people may not know that. So that's why they're ranked higher. We're always required to carry civilian attire in our locker. in case we had to get deployed out on an undercover assignment. So Phil went as a detective for a while, and the reason they look at detectives more lower on the hierarchy is because you become more of a specialist rather than a general practitioner. You're specializing in maybe an arson detective or a major crimes detective, where troopers can do homicide investigations, aided and abetted by the specialist, which would be the detective. You get that? How that would work. So Phil ultimately wanted to come back to the road. He liked the uniform. That was his calling. And like I said, that wasn't hyperbole. He was so recognized that New Jersey Magazine was highlighting him for their cover of their January issue of 1982, of 82 people to watch in 82. Unfortunately, he would not see that magazine published. He died in December of that year. Before I go that, so let's talk about what happened, and then we'll go into the actual investigation that followed. Philip Lamonaco was working at a Blairstown station on December 21st of 1982. The Blairstown station is a rural community up in Warren County, where the troopers there are responsible for patrolling several towns within that region, as well as the I-80 corridor through northwestern New Jersey. Sometime around 4:15 in the afternoon, Lamonaco spots a blue 1977 Chevy Nova, and he pulls it over. Now, maybe with a regular trooper, you would say, well, it was just a motor vehicle stop, and it happened to be two bad guys in the vehicle. It wasn't. This is Phil Lamonaco stopping a car. There was something about those two. It's called criminal profiling. Now, criminal profiling is different than racial profiling, right? Racial profiling is based on ethnicity. Criminal profiling is based on behavior patterns, body language, environmental cues, if you will, along the way. There was something that caught his eye about those two individuals that were in that vehicle that caused him to stop that car. What unfolded was a gunfight that would end up becoming one of the longest state police investigations in our history and one of the largest manhunts in Jersey and federal history. So before I go into the investigation, Philip Lamonaco, he lived for his family, but he lived for the New Jersey State Police. He was a trooper through and through. So let's talk about the organization that he loved and that he was so a part of. And to this day, his name echoes through the organization. So let me play a quick video about the organization, and I will speak about it, and that's where we can ask some questions too. Like Larry was saying, some of the little differences, if you will, between the state police and local organization.
103 years ago, the first class was on this very soil. They were living in tents through the summer and winter. Tents. Some of them went home. Some of them didn't get to call themselves troopers in that first class. Look at the opportunity that you have there. That's something worth having, something worth striving and working for. It's worth working hard for. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of women and men in the last 103 years have tried to be in the seat that you're in. Think about that. You know how many have made it? About 9,200. That's about 100 a year. 100 people get that privilege of calling themselves the Jersey Trooper. It's hard. It's supposed to be hard. So when you get out there, that you're prepared, both mentally and physically. Picture yourselves being part of something bigger and better than yourself. That's what this is. And everything has a purpose. The way you hold yourselves out on Academy Way, the way you march in step, the way you get yourselves into that chow line. the way you help one another. But the special part is you start to mold as one functioning unit with the ultimate goal of having that privilege of calling yourself Jersey Trooper. And that's why this is so hard. Those instructors that scrutinize you and find that piece of lint on you, or see that your tie's untucked, that you haven't straightened out one of your classmates and helped them shine his or her shoes. That's called attention to detail. And it matters when you're on the side of the road and you notice that bulge in somebody's pocket. It might be 6 ounces of crack, might be a revolver, but you're paying attention to it, and that starts now. Don't quit. Dig deep. You dig deep for the next few months, and you have a lifetime surrounded by the best women and men on the face of the earth.
Okay, the New Jersey State Police. What's the first thing you think of when you hear or you think of or you see a New Jersey State Trooper? Anyone? I'm sorry? Pulling over cars. Anyone else? The uniform? Well, the uniform certainly stands out.
They just represent a certain power, certain respect.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
High level of respect.
High level of respect. What about police services? I know many people think the state police are highway patrol. Right? Because they, in this area, they look at the state police, they see them often on the highways. But we are anything but a highway patrol. Matter of fact, when we were started in 1921, there weren't any highways. Right? All right. So I got this thing to just give you a little example as I talked about the organization and why we were formed. This is a map. It's an old one, but it's pretty much the same. It'll fluctuate. The white that you see here are areas. Oh, there you go. That you see are patrol areas. We patrol towns in those communities. So as you can tell, we call that in the state police. We have several, how can I say it? 3 or 4 different station categories, if you will. I think it's 3. You have general police stations, you have highway stations, and then you got a hybrid station where they do some GP work and highway patrol. And that's where LaMonica was patrolling out of, a hybrid station.
If I may, where I go bicycling south of Cranberry, many of those towns don't have any police at all. They call it, the state police are responsible.
Yeah. So as you can tell, in terms of general, you can look over now. In terms of general police responsibilities, meaning patrolling towns, the first station I ever went to was what we call a GP station. So we patrol was towns like Sussex County was like 12 or so communities up there. So when you think about that, something's always going on. Something might not be happening in one community, but another community. God, you want to ask me something?
No, I said you seem to be talking that way, and we want you to talk this side.
You want me to talk that way? I'll walk over here. I'm not ignoring you at all. Well, maybe a little bit. All right, let's see. I lost my train of thought. What was I just talking about? 12, I think it was 12 different communities when I was up there. I don't know how many they have now. So something is always going on everywhere. And my coach said to me one time, he says, look in the rearview mirror. I went, why? He goes, look, and we're stationary. He says, look in the rearview mirror. And I looked, he goes, what do you see? I go, nothing. He goes, you don't see yourself in the rearview mirror? I go, well, yeah, I see myself. There's nothing behind us. He goes, that's your backup. It's yourself. And that is true. I'm not going to talk about the Scott Gonzalez case. Scott Gonzalez was a trooper who was involved in shooting. He was ended up murdered. The first trooper on the scene was the sergeant who grabbed the shotgun out of the same, it's a newer station, but it's the same patrol region that LaMonica was out. Grabbed the shotgun from the station and went out. He was the first one on the scene. He's the actual one that engaged the person who killed the trooper. So the state police are involved on highways. Yes, we are certainly patrolling highways. But we also, let me ask you this question. Did anyone know that a state trooper is also a game warden? Didn't know that, did you? They can enforce fish and game. Did you know that a state trooper can enforce any town ordinance or any statute in any community? A trooper who doesn't patrol a town can drive into that town and enforce that town ordinance. All right, so we are a statewide police agency. We are not your typical, we're not like the FBI, although some could be, you know, it's like, you all have different personalities and stuff, but in general, the state police are not the type of organization where you're gonna come in and take over, unless we are told to take over or something. It does happen from time to time. Seagirt, many years ago, Seagirt Police Department, they had some corruption going on in there, and the state police ended up taking over that town for a few months. So, yeah, we are a statewide, Camden, yeah. Well, we do have metro patrols as well. Camden, we used to go every few years, we could go into Camden, and it's like the Wild West. We'd clean things up, and then we'd leave, so then they came up with a metro task force, where we would go to communities, and I don't know what iteration it's in now. There was some where they would embed the metro troopers into like Irvington, and they would patrol, actually augmenting the regular patrols, not responding to calls. Leave that to the local police. Let us go out and proactively police the criminal element in there. That will bring me to the Lamonaco incident. But by law, there are some things that are written into law that the state police are required to do. We are some administrative functions, licensing, firearms. Anyone who's issued a firearms has to go through the state police. I can't get rid of the state police. I retired from the state police. I still got to do things with the state police. Private detectives get regulated through the state police. Security agencies get regulated by the state police. Troopers are responsible. I don't know how they do it now with the alco tests, but troopers coordinate what used to be the breathalyzers. I'm dating myself. But they go to each community to make sure that the instruments are working correctly. So as you can tell, there's a lot of administrative and investigative functions the state police do. The state police laboratory, every arrest where there's evidence, if it's evidence that needs to be examined through a forensic lab, gets sent to the state police for analysis. They also are responsible for the record keeping. They're responsible for DNA databases. We also are land, sea, and air. Right? We have helicopters. We're responsible for 3 miles out and any waterway within the state. Am I missing anything else? If there's a plane crash, the state police have to investigate it. Yes. Yeah, we ate at a bed with that. Racetracks, the oddity is if there's a crash at a racetrack, state police investigate it. Figure that one out.
How long does it take to prepare to be a state police? It sounds like you have to know an awful lot.
Unfortunately, it's tough. Most of that learning is on the job. But it's a 6-month academy.
And 6 months, wow.
It's a 6-month academy, and it is residential. We don't go home only on the weekends. If anyone knows a Marine, a present-day Marine, or an old-school Marine that became a trooper, they'll tell you the State Police Academy is tougher than the Marine Corps boot camp.
Do all substations, like, in motor vehicles, are they all state police?
I'm sorry?
The substations in the motor vehicles, are they all state police?
The Division of Motor Vehicles? I'm not sure I understand your question.
If you go to motor vehicles, are you going to find a substation for the state?
No, that's the Motor Vehicle Services. No. No.
Do they have to be a certain height?
It used to be. It used to be, I think it used to be like 5'8", 5'10", but they dropped it down to 5'8". Now, I don't know if they totally eliminated that at all.
What's the approximate value rate of people who go for training who don't make it?
About 50%. Yeah, it's about 50%. I was told look to my right and look to my left. One of those two people are not going to be there on graduation. Both of them weren't. No, but they have since tried to move in that direction, which I think they should. But you need, I think it's 2 years work experience and a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. Those are the two pathways to get in. No, there's not weight requirements, but there are physical standards you have to take. They've since have taken a smarter approach than it was when we were in there. It was, you had to be prepared day one to get in there, and if you weren't, you got out. They've since they invest all that money and you get you in the academy and build you up. But that rate that they do that acceleration to get up to speed is very fast, and there's a lot of people that don't make that criteria. So they're still the methodology of the training is trying to build people up, where in the beginning it was just trying to get people out. I mean, there was people getting carried out in an ambulance when I was going for the test. You box, if you happen to be online and Muhammad Ali was before you, you box Muhammad Ali. It doesn't matter if you were this big. So they've since tried to, and there was no headgear, no hood protection and stuff like that. There is now. It's a tough job, because if you're out on the highway by yourself or in a private road by yourself, we're always shorthanded. It's horrible. State police, that's a tradition. That continues to this day. We're always shorthanded. So troopers, and that's why sometimes troopers will be a little aggressive. People go, oh, yeah, he's awful. He was also very aggressive, and yes, and as time goes on, the more, I was like that too. They give you a badge, and I'm sure you too, generally, like when you get a badge and a gun, you think you're John Wayne. After a while, you start to kind of realize, so you kind of, it's the anomalies that never change like that. But sometimes troopers will be a little aggressive because that's what they're, it's tough. It's just a tough job. And you're on your own, and even female troopers will be tough because you're on your own out there. So, it's a tough job. It's a job that, let me give you a little background. It started in 1921. Clarence Case was the senator who introduced the state police bill. He's known as the father of the state police. Talk about history. I don't think a lot of troopers even know that nowadays, and they should. You don't want to forget history. Colonel H. Norman Schwarzkopf, Sr., was the first colonel, and he is the one that's responsible for developing the organization. He is the father of H. Norman Schwarzkopf of the Persian Gulf Wars. Right? That was his father. So he predicated and developed the state police on several models. He went to different state police organizations out there that were already in existence, and one of them being in Canada, the Royal Mounted Police, Canadian Royal Mounted Police. So he built the organization built on a military-style structure, discipline, and service, right? And that was needed back then. Back in the early 1920s, there was a lot of local corruption going on with the police departments. I actually cover that in one of my books. It's called The Shootout at the French Hill Inn, where there was a speakeasy going on in the local police. In my town where I live, by the way, Wayne, this trooper was probably the only trooper that was killed, and there was another trooper in the incident as well. The reason that they were called there is because there was corruption and there was some payoffs going on from this. It was a very popular speakeasy, and the local cops were not doing anything about it. And it turned out that there was a health crisis going on because it was a speakeasy, so they were trying to stop what was going on, and they called in the state police. So from that early on, and that was 1926, the state police had been involved in numerous things. We were involved in a Lindbergh kidnapping thing. We didn't do a good job at it. We were brand spanking new. There were a lot of troopers that had no idea how to conduct an investigation. Matter of fact, we called in 2 detectives from Jersey City to help us on that. But through the years, we've developed into what we are today. Colonel Clinton Pagano made us the most diversified state police agency in the country. We do practically everything. When there's a state of emergency, the New Jersey State Police are in charge, not the National Guard. The state police are in charge.
My husband and I years ago took a test to get a motorboat license in Ewing at the state police.
Yes.
And while we were there, we were able to visit the museum with the Lindbergh archives.
Yes.
Well, you know, like I said, it's interesting.
Police officers usually travel in pair. I noticed that they're pulling a car over, there are two of them. What about the state police? They're single, they just.
We are required to ride, we're actually required to ride doubles well, back in the day it was 2 out of the 3 shifts, but we never did it. At night, we're required to double up. We double up at night. Yes. Yeah, we go out in teams.
Who decides, let's say there's organized crime going on in our town. Who decides whether it's the FBI, the local police, state police? Who makes that decision to do the investigating or, you know?
Well, I think there's a network that is involved in it. There is some,
I mean, the state attorney general, and does he decide?
there's some jurisdictional, and it depends on the departments, but sometimes there's jurisdictional containment that they want to hold on to it. But most of the time, they work hand in hand with the local, state, and federal government with that. And you got organized crime in New Jersey. They're not just staying in one town. So you're going to need some state police involvement, right? And they don't just normally work in the state. They tend to work across state lines, and that would be the federal government. So there's a lot of liaison that goes on when it comes to that. Yes. And also, if there's ever a shooting or something like that, a homicide in a small community that's got their own police department, many times they'll call the state police in.
For bank robberies,
Bank robberies are federal. But the state police will still do it, but that's a federal thing, but we'll still investigate, but that's a federal crime.
So it's both federal.
Yeah, that's correct, because there'll be some other crimes, possession of a gun, for example. So that's how it's a state violation. So it'll work hand in hand. It's not just federal.
Does the state police have any relationship with ICE at all?
No, as a matter of fact, thank God I'm not with the organization anymore. They should. But no, that's getting into politics. All right? But no, but then again, when it comes to responding to a trooper that's in need, or a federal officer that's in need, I don't see any state trooper not responding to that, regardless of if there's some anomaly of some lieutenant or someone else that gives an order to refrain from it. I don't see that being followed by a trooper, like it happened out in, I think it was Chicago, where they were actually told to stand down, and they did. They stood down. So yeah, the state police is pretty vast in what they do. I blame the state police for not educating the public on what they do. They do not tell the public what they do, and that's why when it was an incident where a trooper does something, and they got the media, they go out and they interview people. Do you think the state police are doing a good job? And they chime in based on what? Getting stopped by them and getting a ticket? Because that's basically the only time. That's the only negative. Anytime you encounter a trooper, for most part, it's in a negative way, right? A ticket writing experience. So community policing is not what it once was, and I think there's something that's what set that back was the introduction of a car into policing. And then once you take the heels off the ground, and you get police officers in cars, they don't become as engaging with their communities as they once were. I'm sorry?
They start with horses?
We started with horses, so I'm talking about community policing in general. We started on horses. We started horseback and motorcycle in the snowstorm.
Well, in Canton, they went to the community policing, and I think it was pretty effective in cutting content.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the last 10, 12 years or so, they instituted that.
Yeah. Well, no, you have to get policing back into community relations, and not always in a negative way. Either we're writing someone a ticket or we're locking them up. In our community, state police don't patrol through our community, and one day there was a raid, and it was the state police knocking down the door. I mean, that's the only time people see the state police, when they're doing something like that. So you got to really go out there and engage the public. I think they're trying. I think they would probably increase their recruitment if they did a little bit more of that. So that's the organization from which Trooper Lamonaco came up through, right? So let's go back to the Lamonaco incident. But before I do, I want to kind of let everyone have a feel for how the environment was at the time of his motor vehicle stop, if you will. There was a lot of political, ideological events going on. Domestic terrorism was on a rise. The United Freedom Front, Black Liberation Army, and a whole host of other domestic terrorists were attacking federal buildings, government buildings. They were robbing banks, all to fund their terrorist agenda, their political ideology. Does that sound familiar? Political ideology going on within the domestic community? But to give you a feel for what was going on, and if you know the thing I said before about history, a lot of people go, oh, it's different now, it's worse now than ever before. No, it's never really been good. It's never really been good. You got to realize we have good times, but there are things that are always going on. Policing doesn't really change. It's just what the crime that's going on might change, but the volume and everything else, it's all very similar. Look at what's going on here. Bombings. From 80 to 81, there was nearly 1,700 bombings. Attempted bombings in 81, 152. Incendiary bombings, 329. Attempted bombings, 99. Stolen explosives, 243. Recovered explosives, 637. What does that tell you?
Is that just New Jersey?
This is throughout the United States, what was going on everywhere, which is going to key in the Lamonaco incident, because it wasn't just a Jersey incident. So you see all the stuff that was unfolding. And so that brings us to the Philip Lamonaco motor vehicle stop, right? He is alone, stops these two individuals. A shootout ensues. A call comes into the state police facility that there's a trooper on the side of the road laying dead. And so the first people to arrive on the scene, so I want you to look at this first.
Lieutenant John Landers processes the crime scene, finding further evidence of the gun battle.
I obtained pieces of glass fragments, 12 9mm bullet casings at the scene. They were in the snowbank and in the general area.
From the size and number of bullet casings, Mendres believes the murder weapon is a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. He searches for the gun, but it is nowhere to be found. EMTs transfer Philip Lamonaco's body to the hospital.
So what do? You go on the side of the road, you see the trooper, he's there. He did not call in to stop. So there was no radio communication, so they don't know what type of vehicle he stopped, what happened. There's no body cam. Back then they didn't have body cameras. There's no car video cameras. So what do? No, he had a vest. What do you do? And that goes to state of mind. You can ask me about it, because I'm going to talk about another incident about that as well that didn't have a vest. But what do?
You're relying on passers-by.
Well, passers-by they haven't come to the scene yet, right? The people that are on this side that have already passed the scene are the ones.
Can you trace the gun, the kind of gun, the kind of thing?
Gun was not left at the scene. So what they did, good policing, is they decided to send out what we call BOLO, be on the lookout for, and they set up checkpoints. We had no idea what to be on the lookout for, but we knew it was someone driving a vehicle in all likelihood, unless it was a hitchhiker. This is I-80. I-80 in Warren County, right close to the Delaware Water Gap. So state police in Pennsylvania and Jersey and local police set up checkpoints to interview drivers at random, just hoping one that you might find a bad guy or bad guys. In this case, they knew it was more than one. They knew it was at least two. There could have been 4 in the car, but they knew it was at least 2. All right? And hoping to find someone. And as luck would have it, they found someone who was passing the scene, and he saw a blue Chevy Nova pulling away from the scene. That gave us, yes?
I just wanted to ask, was it part of the protocol at the time for the troopers to call in the stops?
Yes. He didn't call in the stop, and that's a criminal thing in terms of, in the state police, we categorize troopers in a couple ways. He's a criminal guy. That doesn't mean he commits a lot of crimes, the trooper. He leans towards criminal investigations, and the traffic cop. I'm sure you guys probably do have the same thing with the locals. Phil was a criminal guy, so sometimes you would not call in. You would do an inquiry first before calling it in. And that practice continued all the way on until when I came on the job too. It was a judgment call, even though later on they required it to be called in. There were a couple things that they realized as a result of this. He was outgunned. We were carrying 38 revolvers back then, a 6-shot, and the bad guys had a 9mm. The investigation determined that he stopped them, spotted the one gentleman had a gun. If you remember, the colonel during that training video says you got attention to detail is important because there might be a revolver in someone's waistband. He spotted the gun in the person's waistband, had him exit the car tactically, took him out, and while he was engaging with the driver, the passenger got out and a gunfight ensued. I believe he shot 18 rounds. And Philip returned 6, but he got hit in the chest, he had his vest on, one of the rounds, it turned him, and the bullet went in, missed the vest, and hit him in the heart and killed him. So, a couple hours later, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're always required to carry 2 guns with us, a shotgun. I'm sorry? That's the United Freedom Front, correct.
They did catch the people.
Oh, yeah. So they found a Chevy Nova a few hours later, and they processed it. They were able to pull up fingerprints. They were able to, really, it was a Connecticut registration. It was a fake tag, but well done in a professional way. And inside that vehicle was a Connecticut driver's license with the name of, I think it was Richard Williams. Yeah, there you go. Richard Charles Williams. I was just going to look to see if I was correct. Huh? Yes, he was. Well, no, but the Wilson there's a fake name on the DL. But it was Richard Williams. I think Wilson was on the DL. They found a Connecticut driver's license in the vehicle. That night, the detectives that were on the scene that drove out there went immediately to Connecticut for that address, and it turned out to be a hotel. From there, the next morning, they went to the FBI. On that driver's license, the information on there might be phony, right? But the picture has got to match the person who was carrying it. So they went to the FBI, and they pulled up wanted sheets. And one of the FBI agents recognized the face of Thomas Manning.
He was the driver.
No, he was not. He was the passenger. Thomas Manning, I am getting it wrong. Thomas Manning was the driver. Richard Williams was the passenger. Yes, because it was his driver's license with them. So they go and they look at a wanted sheet, and the known associate was a man named Richard Lavaseur. Lavaseur. Oh, that's it, Raymond Lavaseur. And they checked the car, and the fingerprints in the car did not match Lavaseur's fingerprints. So they were like, oh, the detective, state police detective, looks at the bottom of that wanted sheet of Lavaseur and sees on the bottom is an associate of Thomas Manning. They ran his plates because back in the day they didn't have now they have automatic. It's called AFIS, automatic fingerprint identification system. Back then they didn't. They had to physically look at the fingerprints, and when they matched the fingerprints of Thomas Manning to the prints in the car, it was his. Then they start looking at all the associates with Thomas Manning, and that's how they matched up the other fingerprints with Richard Williams. They turned out to be United Freedom Front members.
Was it on Route 80 they found the car? Or was it off the route?
They found it in Knowlton Township off Stanton Road. Knowlton, it's up in Warren County, a small community, one of the communities the State Police patrol. And it was there, and they didn't go across the state line there. I guess they figured, they probably anticipated he called it in, and they'd be looking for him when they crossed the Delaware Water Gap, so they stayed local. They found the car, and it was the United Freedom Front. They were responsible for numerous bombings of federal buildings, bank robberies. That's how they financed the ideology. And the irony is here, and since we're doing a lot of QA, so I'll make this a little briefer. The irony here is the stop that Philip LaMonaco made based on his criminal profiling. And now let me explain. Criminal profiling is not psychological. It's not the profile that you would get from the FBI criminal profiler category. It's based on behavior, people, and situations. A good cop will develop instincts for what is right and what is wrong, and they do that by paying attention to behavior patterns, body language, timing, context. Then they take that and they look at how does that feel within the normal patterns of behavior. So they look at these anomalies and how they affect the baseline to what you would look at as being normal. For example, someone loitering, but loitering too long, paying too much attention to something, or maybe not enough attention. Someone having a conversation when maybe they wouldn't normally be having a conversation, or someone having a conversation when they should be having a conversation, right? The interactions, and these things take place quickly. So when that vehicle passed them, this is the irony, is when the two members of the United Freedom Front passed State Trooper Philip LaMonaco, that organization was done. Whether he lived or died, they were done. Because that killing him ended that organization. It took not months, not weeks or months. It took 3 years before that organization was totally dissolved through all the arrests. We shut them down in coordination with state, federal, and local police departments. We were able to bring every one of those people under arrest. Go ahead.
The only thing I don't understand is, I don't understand what LaMonaco could have seen following two men sitting in a car that would somehow alert him that there was a possible criminal situation going on here.
Good question.
What could he see?
Good question.
He sees
Okay.
the back of two heads.
No, it's a variety of things. He could either be sitting on the side of the road, looking at traffic going by. He could have been driving by and looking inside the vehicle. Let me ask you this. It's I-80. Do you think bad guys are taking Interstate 80? Are they taking Interstate 80? Yes, they are. Do you think bad guys are driving on 18 South or 18 North? They are. If you are aware of that and you are taking proactive police measures, that's where criminal profiling is not racial profiling. Criminal profiling is based on behavior patterns, right? It's a very effective tool in proactive policing because it prevents crimes and it protects police officers. Not many officers practice proactive policing because if they did, you would have probably less crime. Terry versus Ohio, which is the pat-down that we know, it's a case law based on pat down when a police officer can pat someone down. Those were two cops who were taking proactive policing because they spotted behavior that was an anomaly to what would be normal behavior for that time and place. So to answer your question, you're driving down the road, and if you recall what I said about people having conversations that maybe shouldn't be having conversations, or maybe conversations that should be taking place and they are not. If someone walked into this room right now and walked by us from a distance and we're all just sitting in here silent, that should cause someone for a moment of pause and go, why are they silent? Are they in prayer? Or is someone holding them hostage? But it's subtle. These are subtle signs. So when you see two people in the car, and if you are driving down the road and a New Jersey State Trooper pulls up alongside of you, parallels you, and is looking over at you, what would you do? Would you be nervous? Would you look at him to see if you want him to stop right? So what would be a sign that something is off? Maybe looking at him going like this, maybe not looking at him going like that, maybe shaking the hand, or maybe going like this, putting a gun into your waistband.
How about dark tinted glass when you can't see?
Well, that's why it's against the law. Well, here's the thing, and that comes down to leadership. I remember doing a roll call with the homeless troopers, and I sat there and I said to them, don't you hate when cigarette smokers just throw their cigarette out the window? They never use an ashtray. When I was, I said that when I was young, ashtrays would always be full. Nowadays, ashtrays are not full, clean as a whistle. Out the window it goes. I said to the troopers, so I said, don't you hate that? And everyone's going, yeah, because they were all troopers. So 99% of them didn't smoke. They're like, yeah, Sarge, I hate that. Then I said to them, then why don't I see anyone writing littering tickets, enforcing the littering law? And they were all like, oh, get out there and enforce that law. You see it happening all the time. That comes down to leadership. So do they enforce it? Some do, some don't.
My personal experience driving in Middletown along Main Street. And I knew there was a police officer behind me, so I was especially cautious. Yeah. And I turned down Colthall Road, I think, and all of a sudden this thing, and I didn't know what to do, and I pulled into it's an Elks or whatever is there, the first driveway, and comes over to me and I said, why did you pull me over? He says, didn't you see me behind you? I said, I drove especially cautiously because I saw you. Well, talk about behavioral. I said, why was I pulled over? Because you didn't seem to be paying attention. Were you on your phone? I said, no, and I had Bluetooth, but I wasn't even using it. I said, I may have reached your tissue, I don't even remember. What do you mean I wasn't paying attention? Let me see your, whatever. He wouldn't give me back my card that I got from the police officer. And he said, consider it a get out of jail free.
Well, there you go. That's now, was he a trooper?
That was not, that was a
local
police officer.
Well, he probably could have been a little nicer, but I mean we all have we have it in our families, right? We have good family members, we have bad family members. Policing is the same. Go ahead.
My husband and I were in Brandywine Valley. Was it Thanksgiving?
No, it was the beginning. It was the first week of September.
Oh, in September, and there was a prison raid, and I remember going around, and they were lifting up our hoods, and we were not able to get, our trunks, not the hood, sorry, and we were not able to get to the reservation that we had. Thank God we were able to make a future reservation, but this is where it was very scary, when you have a police breakout, and there were police all over checking, or state troopers, I would assume also, checking your cars.
Sure, you have a police breakout. You had Joanne Chestermart, who just died.
Yes.
right? Well, she broke out of prison from the Black Liberation Army. Broke her out of prison. They put her in a low profile prison, and yeah, she died in Cuba. All right. So any questions? So go ahead.
So you said that it took about 3 years to completely dissolve the Freedom Fighter organization after the murder of the state trooper. How long were they in operation before the fellow?
Mid 70s to about 75 to 84. Well, Richard Williams was arrested in somewhere around April of 85. What am I doing? Yeah. Yep, April of 85. No, Thomas Manning was arrested in April of 85, and Williams was arrested in November of 84. All right, so it took a while to bring him down. But yeah, it basically shut them down. And then I don't have time to talk about this, but right down the road, right at the New Brunswick station, Trooper John Harper stopped 4 members of the Black Liberation Army. And during that incident, Werner Foster was killed. And that's why I mentioned to you when you had about the vest. That's where you go about state of mind. I was always under the impression if you're not wearing a bulletproof vest, then you know you're not going to get in a shootout. Because if you knew you were going to get out in the shootout, you'd be wearing a bulletproof vest.
Werner Foster was killed about 2 miles from here, and the overpass is named after him.
Yeah.
Right on Route 18.
Yeah.
Over the turnpike.
Poor Werner Foster got himself involved in something. You know, he was backing up John Harper, who, based on our likelihood of criminal profile, stopped. It's not happenstance that a guy who was a criminal guy who made a lot of arrests stopped 4 members of the Black Liberation Army. It's not happenstance. You know, if it was someone else, then maybe, but not John Harper. Now, was it 3? It was you had one that was killed, one was wounded, Costas, Chesmard,
And Clark Squire.
Clark Squire. Correct. It was 3.
Still in Jersey prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's buried in my hometown.
Who?
Warner Forster, right near my family, and one of our retired Southfield police, Kevin Nielsen, he attends his, he takes care of the grave, which I think is
Yeah.
admirable.
And that incident, John Harper did a phenomenal job on that. Killed the one, shot Chesmart. I believe she was shot like 5 times. She was shot up pretty good. She survived. And then the other one he got away, and Warner was killed. So he tactically retreated up it was right at the foot of the state police barracks. The state police barracks, you could walk right to it where the shooting happened.
And I think it's a sin that when we started relations with Cuba, that wasn't put, that she should be extradited. I know she's dead now, but people were there, you know what? I can see people outside of New Jersey maybe don't remember. I remember.
Yeah. No.
I'll never forget.
That's a subject that's been lectured on numerous times in this town by different people. Police officers have discussed that Foster case.
Yeah.
It's pretty well known around here.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're doing the other cases.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Then you have the Negron case. He was right out of the New Brunswick station as well.
I think they arrested Squire in Pisces junkyard on Pisces Lane.
Really?
They arrested him the next day.
Really?
State police.
It's less than a mile from here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I always say we have a lot of history in the state police. More people should write about it. I don't know why the troopers don't write about it, but there should be more written about state police cases. Well, I'm not going to write. I have a state police book in mind, but it's not going to be about an investigation. It's probably going to be about a colonel. So, but no, that's basically it's supposed to go to 3, right? Is that what we're going to 3 o'clock? Sure, I can go over. Let's go over. Well, I mean that's policing 101. Yes. Let's go like this. We were talking about the John Harper case, right? So I'm not going to talk about that, but I want to draw this parallel. between when you look at some of these exceptional troopers that are out there that understand the little subtle behavioral cues that will, for some reason, draw them to someone that is showing signs of, abnormality, that may be indications of malevolent behavior. John Harper was one of those guys. That's the ramp, by the way. That's where the shooting took place, and that's the barracks up on top. So now you have Phil LaMonaco with the United Freedom Front. You had John Harper with the Black Liberation Army. And although with the LaMonaco case, that was the downfall of the United Freedom Front. They were ending whether they shot LaMonaco or not, because if you arrested him that night, they were already, that would have put him on the path of getting, because they were on everyone's wanted list. So you had that. And then you had John Harper stopping the Black Liberation Army, although not the main reason for the Black Liberation Army's downfall, but it was the catalyst that started to put national eyes on that organization and all they were doing. They were responsible for killing, bank robberies, assassinations. They were an offshoot of the Black Panthers, which it was initially started to monitor and review policing to see if there was some racial profiling going on. So under the guise of its creation, it's not a bad idea to monitor and observe and see if there's any racial profiling going on. It just kind of spiraled in a radical way from there. But, so now you have those two, and then you have, and I had the pleasure of riding with Bob Saplinski. He stopped the first international terrorist on U.S. soil, Yi Kikamura, in the Vince Lombardi service area. And if you watch the news, you read the paper, it makes it sound like, oh, here's another trooper just stumbling upon, an international terrorist. No, if you know Bobby Saplinski, he was one of those criminal guys that just had that sixth sense. He knew how to spot behavior patterns that were indicative of criminal behavior. He spotted this individual in the service area, wasn't acting right. Ended up doing an inquiry through his conversation with him. His initial suspicions were just reinforced by the interactions and conversational tone that was taking place with this individual, his demeanor, his nervousness. It turns out he had 3 explosive devices on him, and he was heading to Manhattan to blow up a Navy recruitment center in Manhattan. 90, I think it was 91, I'm not sure. It's somewhere early 90s. Early 90s. Yep. You talk about foreshadowing. You can't see things on the horses before the First World Trade Center got hit, right? So you can kind of see, if you really paid attention to what was percolating out there, there's some foreshadowing, if you will, of things to come. Just like now, people don't pay attention to what's going on out there, of what may happen. But these things, these encounters that were initiated by the state troopers weren't happenstance. They were deliberate, based on some subtle moves, subtle indicators that for some reason triggered that trooper to encounter these individuals.
Did he have help in arresting him?
No.
Wow.
No. Nope. 3 explosive devices. So. All right. So we can go to, if you guys have any other questions, because that's what I planned on talking about, and I planned for basically an hour presentation. So, but we can go a little bit more with some Q&A. So I know you have some questions about the state of the uniforms. We don't wear. I remember sitting outside one time with a local police officer, and it was like 95 degrees. And he's got his short sleeve shirt on. He's got his open collar, and you can see his white T-shirt. Nice guy, and he's talking. He goes, "You must be really hot. It's roasting out there." And I said, "Do you think that you're much cooler than I am?" It was like one of those days. I said, "Do you really think you're much cooler than I am?" And he went, No. I go, but looks better. I look better in the uniform. He said to me, he went, you're right. Right? Right? So, yeah, we are, whatever a trooper is wearing in Newark has to be the same dress that someone's wearing in Sussex County. I don't think that makes sense because there's a temperature variance, but yes, so we're very uniformed in our appearance. The uniform is predicated. I can't imagine how it went over in the 40s. If you look at it, it's a German-looking uniform, right? Schwarzkopf, right? And maybe if O'Rourke was forming, it might look more like an Irish type of thing, but it was a German-looking uniform. We started, our initial uniform was black. And we stopped that because it had a very SS look to it by the time the 40s came around, right?
Dan's uncle was a state trooper, and they were still wearing the riding boots. And they used to call them the Gestapo when they pull people over on the shrimp, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like job clothes and boots and stuff and riding clothes.
Yeah.
You know?
John, are there any state police officers who are in plain clothes and not uniformed? Like, is there
Many.
detective levels?
Many. We have what you call field operations section, which I spent most of my time in field operations, which is uniform. But I did do some undercover. I did do some plain clothes. Like I told you, troopers can do investigative stuff. But yeah, or detectives. We have detectives. We have what we call station detectives that they handle the investigative workload that comes from troopers at stations. We have arson detectives. We have a bomb squad. We have major crimes. Instead of having like a homicide thing, we call it major crimes. So if there's a rape or a murder or major crimes unit would come out. There's a local jurisdiction that has an arrest, a murder, and they feel that they're overwhelmed, the state police will come in. I remember one time I was at a shooting. It was involved, I backed up a New York State trooper came into Oakland Township. And the pursuit went into the woods. We get there, and it's in the woods, and the trooper fires his gun, shoots the guy in the woods. And the Oakland police captain is like, this is our area, this is our jurisdiction. And so he's already trying to do like, you know. And I'll never forget, I was junior. It was a two-striper trooper, uniform, two-striper. And he said to me, I'm Irish. Right? I wake up in the morning, I'm ready for a fight. That's just me. And he's like, he said to me, this town hasn't had any shootings in like 10 years. So are they going to let the prosecutors, when the prosecutor comes, are they going to let the local police investigate this where they've investigated one shooting in 10 years, or the state police who investigated 10 shootings in 1 year? And I watched, and I waited, and the prosecutor came on the scene, and he was moaning and groaning, advocating for the case, and the prosecutor said, state police is going to investigate this. So, but that's because we're diverse. So to answer your question, yes, there's probably, I don't know the answer to this, there's probably an equal number that are not in uniform than are. Because, you know, I spent my career, I wanted to get out of uniform. Thank God it didn't work out for me. Because I wouldn't be doing the security consulting work that I'm doing now if I had become a specialist. See, that's the thing. When you get into a detective thing, you become a specialist. So if I'm just an arson detective, that's all I know. Right? I've investigated arsons and I've investigated murders, aided and abetted by when it got complex. I called in the arson detective to help me out. So that's the difference. Correct.
Can you touch upon that mystery millions and murder? Is that in Westfield?
The book.
No, that was in Morristown. I have a video. I didn't play it because of time, but one of the gentlemen that was the FBI agents that was involved in the Philip Monaco case, Ed Peterson is his name, was involved in the Philip Monaco case. And I met most of those FBI agents when I was invited to the reunion of this. This was a kidnapping of an Exxon executive, an international, Sidney Riesel. Kidnapped and killed at the foot of his driveway. Placed in a coffin-like box, and he never got out. They ended up killing him. It was a husband and wife team. He was the next cop. went to work as a security guy for Exxon. They let him go. He was disgruntled against Exxon, and he decided that he was going to kidnap an executive. He picked Riso for a variety of reasons. Surveilled him for several months before kidnapping him, and he ended up dying. At the time, it was the largest ransom in U.S. history, $18.5 million. Long time. He went missing out of his driveway 57 days before they had a clue, because there was a lot of mistakes and stuff like that. They had no idea. He just was missing. Dying. No, this is Jersey. This is Jersey. I'm sorry? It was a kidnapping, so the FBI was involved in that. But
did he survive it, or did they kill him?
Sidney Riso died. He got put in that coffin-like box and he was never let out.
That's one of his books.
Yeah, but no, the FBI was involved in that because it was a kidnapping. It took them a while before they realized it was a kidnapping. That's what I talk about in terms of responding. You shouldn't. That's a good example of looking at that criminal profile. You arrive on the scene, and he's missing. Yeah, there's a chance he wandered off into the woods. But when you find out he's the international president of Exxon, his car is idling in the driveway, and he is gone. Someone should have thought that the chief of detectives for the Morris County Prosecutor's Office, when he arrived on the scene a couple hours later, knew right away. Right? And he's a local. He knew right away. It's a kidnapping. Call the FBI. We had other people wandering around looking for this guy, wasting precious time.
Are all kidnappings? How do you differentiate a missing person versus a kidnapping? Because you said kidnappings are FBI. So.
That all depends on what's unfolding with the evidence. And you never know what's going on. In this case here, this is the thrill killer case, you have like 6 or 7 women missing throughout Monmouth County. All the same age, no one noticed. No police department, because they didn't communicate against one another. So they weren't communicating to one another. You had a serial killer on the loose, and no one's communicating. Right? So how do you know? The reason they found it, because the one detective sitting having breakfast, and he's watching the news of a body that was discovered without any shoes. And he remembered a missing person case he had during that summer. And the key to that was it was a young female, and she didn't have her shoes. That's the only evidence that they had, is because she left the shoes behind. So that's how they realized in that there was a connection between that and that case that was missing in that jurisdiction. So it all depends on what's unfolding and what legwork gets done. It's like anything else. It depends on how the evidence is looked at, how it's viewed. Whether the detectives are having a good day or have a bad day. We all have good days, we all have bad days, right? Sometimes you notice things that you wouldn't, and sometimes you don't notice things that you should have, right? So it all depends. Cops have good days and bad days.
Tell us about the museum. Actually, that's how I found John, through the State Police Museum down in Trenton. It's open weekdays only, and there is a trooper station there. So could you give us a little insight of what to expect? Is it
Correct. Yeah, I'll talk about that. The only connection I have to the museum is I've done research there, and I was a trooper, right? So the museum, the office hours, I believe, don't hold me to it. You'd have to check the website. I believe it's Monday through Friday. It's a whole museum. If you haven't been there, you should really see it. You can look up any trooper that ever existed. You type his name or his badge number, if you know it, into this program. It'll come up with a picture. They have a whole exhibit. They'll have a crime scene, what to look at a crime scene. A lot of police officers and troopers as well will contaminate the heck out of a crime scene. The minute it happens, they'll contaminate the heck out of it. So they have a crime scene there, and they'll tell you how it should be contained, what it look like, and they'll walk you through the various stages of it. And they have the ladder for the Lindbergh kidnapping. The ladder that was used to kidnap the Lindbergh baby, that's there. The shooting, the shotgun that was responsible for one of the troopers in my first book is there. They have a whole mess of evidence that was covered, and they rotate stuff in and out. It's like any museum, they'll rotate exhibits in and out to kind of make it fresh and make it new. But there's a lot of artifacts there. They even have some old state police badges that were there. Because once the state police badge is issued in the New Jersey State Police, that number is never used again. It's retired. So, and sometimes when family members die and the family doesn't collect the badge, or a couple generations down the line, the badge will get found. So we got old state police badges down there, old uniforms they'll have. It's a great exhibit, and it's also it's a museum, so you can go in there if you wanted to do some research on these cases. I've used, for the 3 books I've written about the state police, I've used the museum. There's an archivist there that can help you out if you want to do some research. You can't take anything out, but you can look at things that are there. But it's a great resource, and again, the state police should kind of advertise that a little bit more, because they really don't, because it'll let people know what we do. And then the grounds. Yes, it is in Ewing. The grounds are the original. That's our headquarters. It's been there from day one. That's our grounds. It's like sacred ground. Those buildings still look the same.
Ewing, yes.
Ewing Township. Yeah. Correct.
They're trying to say, well,
Yep.
College of New Jersey.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a dumb question, but who designs the troopers' uniforms?
Whoa, that we don't do designs anymore, because we've had the same uniform for years. So who designed it? H. Norman Schwarzkopf Sr. was responsible for the design. And the only thing that's really changed is the color scheme, because we were black back then, and we switched to French blue, because the black was too much of a affiliation with what was going on during the 1940s and 30s.
Do the state police have their own jails? Like, I know in East Brunswick, we have a jail for East Brunswick police officers. In other words, if the state troopers stop stealing on turnpike, do they incarcerate them in East Brunswick?
Well, you're using the term jail. It's really a cell. Each station has a cell. Yeah, we have cells, and then you have the county jail. So when we lock someone up, it would go to the county jail, and then once the case gets adjudicated, then the guy went to prison. He would go to prison, or they stay in the county jail.
So the state troopers don't go have their own jails?
Well, you're using the term jail. No, we wouldn't. It would be the county jail. We put someone. I lock someone up. I put them in our cell, process them, and we ship them off to the county jail.
The first you're up, the state troop, their own. Okay.
No.
It's a holding cell.
Well, when you talk about that, it's government, right? You look at government. You have city government, you have county government, and you have state and you have federal government, right? So when you lock someone up, you would send that person whatever county they are in. I've locked people up in numerous counties. Whatever county that is, they go to that county jail after their process. And then onward to prison if they've committed crimes. I put a lot of people in prison, about 300 people. So, yeah.
Are you ever concerned of, what's the word, back at you?
I was for a time. I had 3 credible death threats against me throughout my career.
Oh, you should have seen Judge Appleby, he's my neighbor. Every time Chesmart was escaped, there'd be all the people, they'd be protected, she threatened him. And they protected him.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, it's the reality of law enforcement, right? Well, it depends if you happen to lock up the wrong person who's been on vengeance.
John, I found from personal experience that if you're pulled over by a state trooper, you're less likely to get a ticket than you would from a local police department. They'll warn you 9 times out of 10. So I've been pulled over a couple of times by the state police on 130, and he was very nice, very pleasant, and he just.
Well, we're not about the revenue.
Yeah, well, that's the difference.
So that's the thing. I don't know about law, but we don't do revenue. The revenue does not go to the state police. It should, but it doesn't. It goes whatever town we write. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have pressure from higher ups to going, hey kid, go out there and write some tickets. That pressure that is always there. But no, we don't have that pressure of revenue and trying to generate stuff like that. But hey, we have troopers. I got in a troop car accident one time, and when there's a troop car accident, troopers, investigate the accident, not the local police, right? And I remember I got in an accident and I called on the radio, Sergeant so-and-so is coming to investigate it. And I said to myself, oh no, that guy would write his mother a ticket. And another sergeant, state police sergeant, got on the air and goes, I'll take that accident, I'm closer. He wasn't closer, he just was saving me from getting a ticket. So you just never know. You just never know.
When do local police call in state police? In other words, a routine, they stop somebody, and when do they decide to call state police officers? They can do anything they want in East Brunswick? In other words,
No, that's the jurisdiction. They could do what. Yeah, that's the.
Well, you know, a routine is a good example. It's a state highway, so it's patrolled by multiple police departments: East Brunswick, Spotswood, Aldridge, and the state police. They're all out there.
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. That's a good question. When do they decide to call them out? Well, one, if they need assistance.
Where did it stop by East Brunswick police? When did the East Brunswick police say, "Hey, we're going to call a state"?
When there's a reason to call them, like no, like why would you need? The thing is, they can enforce. The local police have the authority throughout the state too. Why would they need to call the state police unless it's an investigation that's going to take them across state line or county line or municipal lines that they might need that bigger network. You know, it depends on what's unfolding, but they don't need state police to do their job, just like the state police don't need the FBI to do their job, right? So it's just, if you need assistance, you might need some advice, but they have detectives themselves. So it depends on the complexity of the investigation. You got a homicide investigation, and if the prosecutor's office is steering that, and those detectives are having maybe some difficulty, they might ask the state police to come in and serve as a consultant, much like I do now in consultant work.
What about bomb threats? Do state police have anything to do with that, or is that FBI or whatever?
No, state police, well, you would also get the ATF involved in bomb threats as well. But yeah, we have a bomb unit, but a lot of counties have their own bomb techs as well. So it depends. There's only 3 full-time SWAT teams in New Jersey. And that's the state police, Troop A, Troop B, and Troop C. But other counties will have their SWAT teams, and they practice on a regular basis. But our SWAT team is full-time. It's what they do. These guys are a little bit of, you know, they do push-ups like it's nothing, and that's all they do is train. Mostly for medical, but you know, it's mostly for medical. Right now, in my day, it was mostly medical. We would use it in some police functions from time to time. I used it on a couple pursuits. I had fleeing suspects after a pursuit that crashed. I called in a helicopter. So, you know, if there's a bird in the air and it's nearby, local cops can do that too. If there's a bird in the air, you call the state police and say, can you help us out? They're not busy, they'll help you out. Yeah, it depends if there's a bird in the air, right?
Okay.
All right?
Okay, well, John, thank you very much.